Hello and welcome to It's Your Voice. I am your host, Anita DeFrancesco. It's Your Voice was born out of the DonnaGentiliStory.com, a true crime story that I wrote, which is a book available on Amazon, of a young girl who was silenced at a young age. And It's Your Voice is a podcast that was born out of her story, the DonnaGentiliStory.com. This podcast is dedicated to all the voiceless women of the world. May your voice be heard. My topics here are a hybrid of topics within mindfulness, sexuality, and relationships, metaphysical, spiritual, etc., etc. Psychology, I'm a psychotherapist, a love and relationship coach, tantrawisdom.com. And today's topic is an interesting one, which I've done something on this before. It's not cheating, it's desire. And what does that mean? Now, when I think of cheating, I think of, romance and your lover's cheating on you, or you're on a diet and you're cheating. And you're cheating with all the sugar and the sweets and the things you shouldn't be eating that can make you sick or make you fat. So I always say that cheating is an unpurposeful word. It is desire. But the goal with desire is to have a balance and not to abuse desire. It is okay to want to love more than one person. It is okay to unfold and eat more or things that are not within your regular regimen of a diet. It's okay to want to go out overboard and stay out late hours at night or whatever it is, but everything must be done with a balance. So desire to eat more, love more, and whatever else you can think of that you have. Desire comes out of what we call, a lot of the time, if it's abusive, is obsessive and compulsive addictive or quasi-addictive behaviors from the past that people haven't learned how to really come into harmony with their fullness and align the spirit, the emotional self, spiritual self, mental self, physical self. But we're getting there, folks. So abusing desire, one of them, like I just said, will be overeating and betraying of a loved one. But the problem is that it's what it really boils down to. It's a self-entertainment of the self. So when you're self-entertaining yourself, what you want to do is not hurt others or not self-sabotage yourself. Keeping in mind, self-love is also a factor that can get dismissed when we abuse ourselves in any way. So self-entertaining the self. Now, what this comes down to is having a lack of discipline and a lack of boundaries. A recurrence of this constant need. What are the recurrences? For a moment now, let's just take a breath here. Awaken to your senses. You're listening to It's Your Voice. I'm your host, Anita DeFrancesco. And what are the recurrence of your constant needs? And these are the things that you can have a healthy life and live your desire to its fullest. I attract the life I desire. But you have to have parameters. You have to have the different nourishment going on within, the boundaries and the character. So allowing yourself to understand, once you understand what desire is, allowing yourself to have it. Because I don't consider anything I do cheating, even though I can overeat. I can overdo things. I look at it as compulsive, addictive. But then I say, well, hey, let me get back to my psyche here. Let me get back to my emotional state. Let me see if there's any PTSD trauma in my body in the past. What is it that is the void? There is no void. It's just that there's not enough self-love. I am desire. Let's go with that statement today. I am desire. Stepping away from your feelings for a moment. Just stepping away from the feelings. Living your desires. Sustaining and containing the emotions. So once we have this, what we call this sacred container, the sacred container of the emotions, and you're able to sustain them and contain them, and you're able to sort of put them in a place and categorize them, and you're able to come back and forth, come back into yourself. And this gives you what we call an allowance, a permission to be able to step away from the feeling for a moment. Again, reminding yourself that with desire, we don't want to self-sabotage or injure the self or anyone. And we don't want to hurt another person's feelings, because desire is something that is part of your creative essence. Honoring your desires. What are your desires? Make a list. Maybe your desire is to have this big house on a hill with some fancy cars or a bunch of children. These are desires, but remember, we can't go overboard, because then we lose that karma. We want to stay connected to the karma and the non-material world, because the materialistic world can keep us in the ego and keep us away from the self-love. Now, coming back to your desires are a part of your feelings. They are a part of your feelings. What are your desires asking you of today? So take a moment, write this down. I usually ask you to write things down. What are your desires asking you for today? Feelings, expansiveness, expansive consciousness, oneness. Now, as a Tantra teacher, we teach people about oneness and Tantra. And so having the desire over and over again when it comes to romance for the same person. So constantly recycling and moving higher into the fullness of the highest power of the human condition. And as you continue to make love to the same person over and over, you will sustain what we call this oneness, and you will have a new desire, recreating the desire over and over for the same lover. So desire doesn't mean to go out and cheat and hurt your lover or put your lover aside. But what it means is, to have communication and to look at yourself and see where this void is. And again, remember, the void is just self-love. You're avoiding the self-love of the self. And part of having an abusiveness and desires is neediness, codependency. So again, coming back to what we call this discipline, it's a form of motivation which makes you the leader of your own life. Now, have you thought about being the leader of your own life? And how does that look? How does that sound? Taking charge. But that requires a certain amount of willpower, resiliency, and discipline that you cultivate from within, from your experiences, from the work you do in your life, on your spiritual being, refining the spirit. Now, this whole thing comes from a deep place of truth. Now, suppression, getting to the suppression part, is when we put the lid on the desire. So even as children, we're growing up and throughout our lives, we're constantly being dismissed, condescended, belittled, judged. The lid is constantly, you almost feel like you become a trash can and you just want to pop your head out, open the lid and pop your head out just for someone to put the lid back on you. So it is this part of the self that we have to again come back to the discipline, the self-love, so that you can be the leader of your life. I can't think of anyone else who can be the leader of my life except me. But then again, I've done the transformational work. Divine love, transformation, Tantra wisdom is my work. Now, when it comes to a partner where the cheating is such a big word, which I sense it to be an unpurposeful, unproductive word, there needs to be a communication. And you want to find, again, in Tantra, this desire together, recreating and regrowing, refinding the desire together. And whatever that may mean, even if you are extending yourselves out to be with other lovers, or going into polyamory, or even threesome type sexuality, or whatever it takes, if it's about sex. But it's really never about sex, but that's what it always boils down to be anyway. It's about the void and the loss and the need and the thrill. How about the thrill? Who you are is what you need to figure out, number one, with your partner, with yourself. So emancipating, coming back into the independence of your psychological spirit. There's this neediness. What is it? Breathe into right now the neediness that you have, or the insecurities that you have about yourself, or the low self-worth, the low self-esteem that keeps you hurting yourself and hurting others. So when you hurt others, you hurt yourself. And when one suffers, we all suffer. So what this whole thing about desire, abusive desire, is fulfilling the unmet needs and the voids that we have. Unmet needs and voids. So getting back to, let's take a breath for a moment here. You're listening to It's Your Voice. I'm your host, Anita DeFrancesco. Sooner or later, I'll be starting again to interview people, but right now I'm just rambling on myself here, folks. Cheating, an unpurposeful word. I don't like that word because I like to eat those sweets when I'm not supposed to. One thing I don't do is cheat on a lover. That's one thing I won't do. I'm too transformed for that. It's sad because I have to suffer while my lovers all tend to want to cheat on me. But anyhow, beside that, cheat, have a desire for someone else. But I'm so open-minded, only if they would talk. I'm a Tantra teacher talking about it. It can all work out. Abusive desire means going overboard in whatever it is, overboard in working out at the gym. I know when I lived in Los Angeles for 20 years, it wasn't that I went to the gym once. I had to go 3 times a day. It was so compulsive that everything was about having the perfect body, being in the entertainment business and living in sunny Los Angeles where everyone was about, the movie life. And it just seemed like it was an abusive desire. As much as I enjoy going to the gym, not 3 times a day anymore, just once. So it takes a little bit of a self-control that you take this self-control, think and walk and manage. Think, walk, manage, manifest. Manifestation from where this comes from. To love someone is a responsibility. But people go out of that and they go because of the abusive desire-ness from such things as entitlement or an overpowered ego. These are the things that cause someone to step away from or hurting themselves and hurting others because they believe that their desires are more objective than they are subjective. And when your desires are more objective, they're totally feelingless. But if you come back to self-love and you start to see that the desire is subjective, it is a self-love thing, then everybody can be happy. You can have what we call this mystery of the miracle. Structure begins, it begins in an everyday life. You have to cultivate the resiliency, the self-love, and it is building from your pyramid. And this is the structure of helping yourself to really live the desire you want, but in a healthy way. The more truth we confront, the more layers we unfold. The more truth we confront, the more layers we unfold. Oh, let's breathe, everyone. You're listening to It's Your Voice. I'm Anita DeFrancesco. How do you become desire? You become desire from desire is your bliss. It is your sensual. It is a full passion of love that lives in your body. It is self-love. So you become desire when you connect to your truth, which then manifests into blissfulness, which is the higher power, the feeling of being free, the feeling of being liberated. And that this lives in your body, not in your head, folks. So get away from that like in your head kind of thing. Because if you're still in the head and using statements like it's your head, in your head, you're totally disconnected from the feeling in the body. The head part went away a long time ago. It was the mind. Then it went to body and mind. Now it's body, mind, soul, and sexuality and spirit. I remember football coach Vince Lombardi. He said the difference between a successful person and others. What is the difference between a successful person and others? Is not a lack of strength or knowledge, but a lack of will. Now, willpower is something that really takes experience to learn how to build that up. When I was a child, I had to learn to have a lot of willpower. Growing up, being a sick child in a hospital for 6 months, away from the family and not having a lot of friends, and having to build this willpower, resilience, so that I wouldn't have resistance to people. And the willpower comes from, it's a strength that you cultivate. And when you get that, when you feel that, that is power. That is who you are. And to have this depthfulness of willpower is something that I have. A lot of sport people have it, like as Vince Lombardi says, it's not a lack of strength or knowledge, but rather it's a lack of will. And so if you don't have the will to do something, that's about 80% of it. Having the will to move forward into what you desire in life. What do you want to move forward in your life? What is your desire? Do you want to be a very successful politician? Do you want to be a very successful doctor, or a very successful mother or father, or a successful entrepreneur? What do you desire in your life? Success, family, etc. Success in love. That's a big one, because success in love is something we really need to talk about, because that is where there's a lot of failing there, because people don't understand what desire is, and self-love and liberation. You have the will to stay back and go ahead, or go ahead. So you have the will to either stay back or go ahead, and to make this your life as productive as you can. So whatever the will it is that you want, take that moment, sit down, and write it down. What is it? I attract the life I desire. So let me give you a few more things here, and then we'll close up. Abusive desire stems from an imbalance of the emotions, the physical, the spiritual, the somatic body. It stems from compulsive addictive behaviors. Absolutely. And everyone, doesn't matter if you have addictions of any kind at all, everyone has some form of a little bit of an addiction to something. We're not perfect, and we live in a world where there's so much available to us. You know, you just turn on a TV and you have everything available. You go into a store, you can buy whatever you want. Well, I mean, of course, no wonder their obesity is on the uprise. There's just so much food available, folks. There's so much sex available. That's why everybody's running around with 3 and 4 mates in a relationship. We're forgetting about the true value of a relationship, respecting and loving that. Fear and conflict, the inhabitation, the embodiment of fear and conflict is what keeps you in the abusiveness of yourself. Avoiding reality. Anger is a very, very low key. It's something that we discharge and we displace. So anger is something that needs to be addressed. So you have to sit down and think of the things that made you angry. Did you forgive yourself and others? The low self-esteem would be where someone would want to step out and see to fill a void that could be, abusing the desire that's within, instead of coming back to the self and strengthening the heart, the mind, and the body. So it's not the mind, folks. It is the mind, body, and soul and spirit. Avoiding pain. People who avoid pain will seek out. So these are some of the things about abusive desire. So it's not cheating. It's desire, folks. I attract the life I desire. I will leave you with that. Thank you for listening. I've been your host, Anita DeFrancesco. You've been listening to It's Your Voice podcast.